And another thing you brought up that I really hope goes away, to be honest, is that I like the idea of everydays, but they like, and there are people doing them in super original, amazing ways. But the vast majority of the ones I see are Beeple clones. It's just it's Octane and a light and something shiny and a model you got off Turbo Squid, and it looks beautiful and it's awesome. But it's just creating this generic soup of just neat looking techie 3D renders that don't make you feel anything, you know?
Yeah, I personally, I don't know. I try to have this viewpoint of being critical, not cynical.
Right.
And the one-a-days are very difficult for me to not be cynical, but I think most of them are garbage in terms of the way they're being presented, right? Like, I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with maintaining a sketchbook, essentially, right? I think there's nothing wrong with having a thing that keeps you motivated to do one-a-days all the time to try to get better. The problem is I see people doing something. I don't see a lot of people getting better. I see them just copying, like you said. I mean, Beeple is amazing. 10 years of one-a-days, and you look at his stuff and they could all be covers to books. They could be posters for films. And you see his, I feel like when he's using it, you're looking at like a master artist sketchbook, right? Like you can literally see him developing his voice, developing his ideas. He'll do something for 3 months and you can see it getting refined or getting better or like evaluating different types of composition. And then you can see one thing happen where he's like, oh, I learned this new thing about this one thing in a renderer. And then all of a sudden everything shifts and it's just about that. And then he goes back to square one and he's iterating, he's designing, he's finding his voice. He's speeding up his techniques. He's increasing his fidelity. But you see a discussion happening, right? Like you see an artist's growth when you watch that. And I feel like that's why he's doing the one-a-days. He's not doing the one-a-days to get likes. He's not doing the one-a-days to get articles written about him. He's doing it because he has something inside he wants to do, and he has something that he wants to figure out, and he's sharing it with people. That's where I think one-a-days are amazing. When you're doing it because you're like, oh, you know what? I saw this cool thing. I'm going to rip it off, or I'm going to literally use the exact same composition, or I'm just going to use the same technology just to try to like get the buzz that Beeple gets. That's where I'm like, you know what, just don't even bother. Like go out and spend a month making one thing that looks awesome, that you then spend another month making one thing that you show. But yeah, I feel like there's just this kind of like social media hype train that people are just trying to catch on board, that Beeple's kind of like in the like leader spot for. And it just seems it seems like it just actually devalues the work that everybody's doing sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard, Nick from Grayscale has said some interesting things about the everyday thing. I mean, you made a good point that, they serve a purpose. If you're new to Cinema 4D or you're trying to learn Octane, it's a good way of just getting reps in and kind of learning and learning a new technology. And in that sense, it's an amazing idea. I think where it starts to feel gross is when people look at what Beeple has done, and Beeple has transcended motion design. I mean, he's like Beeple stuff shows up in weird spots. He's kind of like Andrew Kramer in that way. Like, people not in the industry have heard of Beeple. And they want some of that juice. And so it's using everydays as a marketing tool, as opposed to what the strength of them is. And I think Chad Ashley has said some things on their podcast about, everydays they're good for learning little things, taking little bites of knowledge. But if you really want to get good at lighting, trying to do something in one day, and really it's not like one day, it's like a couple hours that you have free. You're not going to get a lot better just doing that. You got to spend some time on this. You need to spend a couple days like lighting a complex scene. That's how you're gonna learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And the compulsion to hit the one-a-day thing, to say you've done it for a year, or for 2 years or 3 years, kind of leads to some really bad behavior. Like it leads to people who are like actually taking other people's artwork and just kind of like tweaking it and saying, oh, look what I did. And not really doing like any call outs. You see that a lot where it's like, then it's almost like the desire to have the Beeple hype actually perverts the whole kind of like artistic experience.
Right.
Like you're not doing it to learn. You're not doing it to get better. You're not doing it to like develop a voice. You're doing it just to maintain, I don't know, some type of schedule. And it's leading you to do some kind of like morally ambiguous stuff.
Yeah, and there's been some semi-high profile flare ups of that we've seen it.
Yeah.
So my hope is that next year, I don't think one-a-days are going anywhere, and not that they
No.
necessarily should go anywhere. I would just encourage people to do them for the right reasons, and the idea of practicing every day is a very good idea. The idea of practicing and then trying to get Instagram likes from your practice every day, maybe not such a good idea.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like what we try to teach, right? Like I'm sure you teach this at School of Motion, and at MoGraph Mentor we teach it is like if you really dig somebody, don't try to emulate them. Try to emulate the people they were learning from or the people they were hyping on, right? Like if you dig Ash Thorpe, don't rip off Ash Thorpe. Go and rip off Katsuhiro Otomo. Go and rip off the guy who was the cinematographer for Stanley Kubrick. Go and find who Ash was thinking about when he was making his thing and use that as like an inspiration point to find out other things that you could be into and find, again, it goes back to finding your voice. Don't just rip off the surface level cool. Go and find what made that cool thing interesting to you.